Also tonight, half of the United States Senate now pressuring the NFL directly, the league, to officially call on the Washington Redskins to change its name. Lawmakers sending a pair of letters to the league, even suggesting that the NFL could learn a thing or two from how the NBA handled the Donald Sterling controversy. Today, they write, "We urge you, Commissioner Roger Goodell, and the NFL to send the same clear message as the NBA did, that racism and bigotry have no place in professional sports." Ben Shapiro is editor-in-chief of the media watchdog group truthrevolt.org. Jim Gray is a sportscaster and Fox News contributor. And Simon Moya-Smith is a columnist and reporter for Indian Country Today. Simon, let me start with you. Do you agree that it's racism and bigotry akin to what we saw from Donald Sterling, this team name?
I do, because it's one of those situations where, again, we're having to explain what racism toward Native Americans is. It's a slur. It's a dictionary-defined slur, so I don't know where the debate is, why it's
You don't see any distinction between what's in somebody's head and what's in somebody's heart? Do you think that the team owner of the Redskins is a racist man?
Oh, no, I'm not saying he's a racist man. So let's imagine that the name itself was a good, because that's been argued, right? It's been argued that it started as a good, but now it's something bad. It's empirically proven to affect the psychology of Native American kids. So we're not calling people bad. We're reminding people that this is a slur. And the reason we're having to remind people is because when it comes to Native Americans, things like Halloween and Thanksgiving and playing American Indian is fun. Now, with the web, we get to say, hey, we're here. We didn't die. Let's tell you that the Redskins is bad.
But, Ben, the problem, though, is that the most recent survey of Native Americans themselves, which was 2004, showed that something like 90% of them had no problem with the name, and 90% of the American people, or at least in all surveys, consistently in the high 70s, low 80s, and up to 90s, have no problem with this name.
Well, were those done on reservations?
The political games that are being played here.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, the political games that are being played here are absolutely ridiculous. The fact is that 49% of Native American kids were not graduating high school as of 2010. Only 3 were going on to college. Only 10% of those were graduating in 4 years. And the Senate is focused on the name of the Washington Redskins, as though that's the biggest problem facing the Native American community. The name of the Washington Redskins is about 100th on the list of issues facing Native American communities today.
Jim, what is the league likely to do? So Goodell spoke to this a while ago and didn't seem to find any problem with it, but now they seem to be, I mean, that wasn't a letter from half of the United States Senate.
Well, I don't think the league's going to do anything. In fact, the folks that I have spoken to throughout the league, across the board, are more irritated that Congress, with an 8% approval rating, is wading into this. The one thing that sports fans really hate, and it's universal, they hate when politics gets involved in sports. I spoke to Bruce Allen, the general manager of the Washington Redskins, to get his reaction and the team's reaction to what happened today. He said, this is nothing new. 90% approval rating with Native American Indians. They support us keeping the name, and this has absolutely nothing to do with Donald Sterling.
Simon, what
when
about
you wrap
those,
it all up here, Megan, they're not going to change the name. The name is going to stay.
Simon, what about those statistics and those polls?
I think it's really interesting. It's like, what Indians? You have an Indian before you. There's empirical studies proven that this affects the psychology of children. I've been told that, oh, we're made of tougher stuff, so it's not that offensive. But our kids aren't made of tougher stuff. They grow up just like me. I grew up in a school being called an Injun. Racial slurs toward Native Americans haven't been rubbed out. There are schools in Colorado, the Lamar Savages. People think it's okay to denigrate Native Americans because it's their tradition.
But
what about our tradition?
But to denigrate, that's what I was trying to get at earlier. What does it mean to denigrate? Just to say the word? Because let's take the N-word, for example.
Okay.
If it's uttered by certain people, it's considered grossly offensive. If it's uttered by certain people, rappers, for example, it's not considered offensive. So the Washington Redskins, that name was born at a time that wasn't found offensive. Most of the fans don't find it offensive. Most of the nation doesn't find it offensive. Now, today, you tell me some portion of folks do find it offensive. So what makes a name truly derogatory or not?
Just because it's majority doesn't make it right. There was a lot of things in history that were majority approved, but we went past that.
But we don't call
African Americans colored.
Megan, it's interesting to note that when this was designed, it was designed by Native Americans. In fact, the National Congress of American Indians approved the design and the name. So when they say that the polling is wrong, I mean, we have to take the people who are doing the polls, the Associated Press, they've come out with these polls. The Redskins have done their own internal polling. And this doesn't seem to be the issue. I understand that it may be offensive, and if you were naming a team today, Megan, you could guarantee one thing. They would not name the new Washington baseball team the Redskins.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
that wouldn't fly in this day and age.
But wait, let me get Ben in here. Let me get Ben in here. But what do you make of the fact that Congress seems they have no problem apparently with trying to sort of curtail the speech rights, basically, of a professional football team based on their definition of what's right and what's not right?
It's absolutely absurd. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Certainly, the spirit of that law would suggest that senators should not spend their time sending letters to private organizations about how they... Plus, a lot of these senators happened to be present when President Obama was inaugurated in January of 2009. The person who gave that benediction, Reverend Joseph Lowry, uttered the line, "The red man should get a head man." I didn't see any of them complaining about it at the time. It's only now, when it's politically convenient, that they turn around to do this to distract from other issues.
Well, I noticed Bernie Sanders is one of the ones who signed this letter. He apparently found time to sign this, but he didn't have time to read that 2.5-page bill on the veterans.
Unless we interrupt your sports, you're not paying attention to us.
Simon, thank you. Gentlemen, thank you all.